And we're going to look at Affix system updates and the war within, and then we're going to react to it from my point of view. Greetings, Dungeoneers! This week's beta update includes major changes to the Mythic Keystone Affix system in the War Within based on player feedback. Our primary goal with these updates is to refine the Mythic Plus experience to better serve a diverse player base. Previously, we approached Mythic Keystones with a one-size-fits-all approach, which proved challenging in striking the right balance and limited our design space. In this new build, you will see significant shifts in our design philosophy. We recognize the importance of weekly variety for those progressing through the system. However, for players pushing high keys, this variance has sometimes felt restrictive. We also heard your feedback about wanting affixes with both positive and negative effects, as well as a desire for thematic nods similar to past affixes. This update to the affix system aims to meet those diverse expectations. We're maintaining the core goals of our last round of changes, but without the limitations of a one-size-fits-all approach. This flexibility allows us to craft a more tailored experience for each of the different playstyles. Let's dive into the revamped affix system. Ooh, seems big. Okay, overview. We're reducing the total number of mechanical affixes on a keystone for players progressing through the system from 2 to 1. The following affixes are being retired for the War Within, including Sanguine, Bolstering, Raging, and Bursting, which is like almost everything. So there goes all of it. We've heard your feedback that applying bonuses unevenly to players feels exclusionary regardless of overall impact. Affixes that were part of the last Mythic Keystone test will no longer apply to Keystones, so the +4 affixes that were talked about previously, I think they're just gone. Our one bucket of active affixes for players progressing through the system offers variety along with positive effects for executing these affixes that apply more evenly. We're reintroducing thematic elements to affixes by invoking xal'atath in Mythic Keystones with her own set of affixes. We're utilizing passive affixes to signpost expected increases in player mastery and commensurate rewards as players progress through the Mythic Keystone system. We're aiming to eliminate push weeks by providing a consistent challenge that focuses solely on the dungeon for players seeking to advance deeper into the Mythic Keystone system for scores and titles. Nice platitudes, lot of talk, but let's get to the specifics. So, starting at 2s, xal'atath herself will manifest in dungeons. Sexy. Introducing a rotation of affixes under the banner of xal'atath's Bargain. These affixes not only seek to empower the dungeon's denizens, but also grant players the opportunity to harness their effects. For our first test this week, we'll have 2 xal'atath's Bargain affixes available. One affix is an event that players must deal with periodically, while the other affix is a passive effect on creatures throughout the dungeon. So here's the first one, Ascendant. While in combat, xal'atath rains down orbs of cosmic energy that attempt to empower nearby enemies, increasing their haste and movement speed. If players disrupt the orbs, they can claim this effect for themselves. It's pretty straightforward, nice. And then Frenzied. The passive thing, non-boss enemies become frenzied at 30% health remaining, increasing their haste by 40%, but increasing their damage taken by 20%. So an enrage plus an executes. Cool. Starting at 7s, so these are the I guess these are constantly active no matter what. Yeah, starting at 2s, sorry. Okay, and then starting at 7s, there's going to be a new affix, Challenger's Peril, which directly affects the dungeon timer. This affix emphasizes precise play and strategic execution, placing greater risk on players' decisions. Okay, Challenger's Peril means dying subtracts 15 seconds from time remaining rather than 5 seconds. Okay. Starting at 12s, a new affix replaces the xal'atath's Bargain affixes. Oh, so going from 2 to 12s, like they're just gone. Okay, at this level, xal'atath revokes her bargains, empowering dungeon creatures with a 20% increase in health and damage. So in this case, she betrays players, revoking her bargains and increasing their health and damage of enemies by 20%. Okay, so it takes the fun part out, and it basically means at higher keys, we're playing Heroic Plus. This is something that I actually talked about like off, not in a recording, but I talked about this like at some point. I'm like, okay, maybe at very high keys, maybe they should just take out the affixes and then just add, and then switch from affixes to just straight more damage and stuff, because we're going beyond the point where it's rewards and we're just going for time. So maybe they should just live in that sort of space instead. Let's keep going. Fortified and Tyrannical. Fortified and Tyrannical now serve as milestone affixes that alternate between keystone levels 4 and 10 on a weekly rotation. We feel this provides us with clearer points in the system where increases in difficulty and rewards occur. This also affords more distinction between key levels for players progressing through the system and a consistent week-to-week experience for players progressing deeper into the Mythic Keystone system. So there was a suggestion that was made, I think it was by Dratnos the other day, as someone mentioned, where he was suggesting that Fortified and Tyrannical just be like a thing on both weeks, but the difference would be like, so at a +4 on one week, it'll be Fortified, and then 10 it's Tyrannical, but then on another week, it's going to be Tyrannical at +4 and then Fortified at a +10. So something like that. And I think that is what's being communicated to us here. So let me read this again. They serve as milestone affixes that alternate between keystone levels 4 and 10 on a weekly rotation. Okay, I think that is what it is. I think it is what he had mentioned. Instead of +2s, it's like +4s instead. Because that way, people who play at the lower band, because they exist as well, who want to at least try out 2s and 3s and whatnot, they at least have, that spike in difficulty. They deal with a timer, but nothing like, these sorts of affixes here. Okay. So here are examples of what keystones look like under this new model. Okay, so keystone levels 2 through 11 have the following affixes. You have xal'atath's Bargain. You have Fortified or Tyrannical, which alternate. At 7s, you have the Challenger's Peril, which is just harder. You get bigger penalties for dying. And then the other, either Fortified or Tyrannical. Okay. When we hit 12, we have, you deal with both Fortified and Tyrannical. You deal with the bigger death thing. And then the bargain goes away. Okay. So it's going to seem confusing at first. In practice, it's going to kind of like, it feels like it's going to even out the playing field, because you don't have to worry about dealing with this xal'atath thing, the bargain, the gimmicky stuff. Because one thing that I had constantly been critiquing about when it comes to, hey, we need positive affixes. The problem with so-called positive affixes is that, and let me go back here to the example of what it is. Here we go. The problem with something like this at very high keys, or even not so high keys, like if you mess this up, then it becomes a double negative, right? Kind of, sort of. Like you need to pick these up right. Or if you have to, I guess it depends on how this works. Like if we disrupt the orbs, does the person who disrupted it get the buff? Does everyone get the buff? So there's that to consider. And then of course there's, while you're doing this in practice, everyone's going to probably share a bit of responsibility to make sure that these orbs are disrupted somehow, some way. If someone misses it, then, it becomes not just you don't just miss a positive, it becomes a negative, because now you're not killing the mobs as fast. Now, the fact that they're only applying this to keys 2 through 11, I think that's pretty cool, because at 12 and higher, it's just going to get crazier and crazier. The dependence on the affix is going to be that much more impactful, or punishing, or punitive, however you want to twist it. So I think closing things off is not bad. This sounds like a pretty fair way to look at it. I like the Fortified Tyrannical change, where it's basically there isn't really that much of a there's no alternation, kind of, sort of. You kind of are with, like, okay, at lower level keys it's going to feel different, but at higher keys it doesn't feel different at all. People doing high keys just expect these, and you'll notice that keys 12 and up, it's always like this. There is no rotation. There is no change. There is no difference. The only thing that, well, I'll get to this in a bit, because I think there's going to be a big problem with this, but I'll talk about it after this. Dungeon score. We're evaluating how dungeon scores are granted under this new model. We believe these changes, along with our heroic and mythic dungeon changes, provide players with ways to engage with dungeons in a setting that they prefer. This is a fresh look at Mythic Plus, and we look forward to your feedback and continuing discussions on these affixes and overall system changes we'll see in the Dungeons by. So I'm really glad that they've made this sort of response, because it was only like a couple of weeks ago when they introduced like those +4 affixes, and then people were like, nope, sucks, not liking it, and then they're like, all right, and they just threw the whole freaking thing out, and now they have this. So kudos to the WoW team for being able to pivot and for listening to this. So I'm cool with that. Now, here's the problem that I'm alluding to. So we're seeing here for Keystone levels 12 and up, Keystones have the following. They have all these things and nothing changes really. This doesn't change. So Fortified, trash is tough. Challenger's Peril, deaths mean more. Tyrannical, bosses are harder. xal'atath's Guile, more damage from the mobs. And that's it. So what we're seeing from key levels 12 and up is essentially heroic plus. Now, this is strictly the realm. This is the realm that's past. We're past rewards. I think we're past portals, and we're definitely past like where we would get aspects or AKA gilded, whatever, and crests and what have you. I mean, they'll still get crests, but you know what I mean. Like we've gone beyond getting rewards, and this is for people who are trying to push for like the best time, the best record and what have you. The problem that I see here is that with this being static, you will see the meta, and it's going to be like it's going to be a very strict meta. Once people discover it, people who are trying to push keys, they're going to find, oh man, there's no hope. There is no way that I'll be able to get into a key, because the big creators, the streamers and whatnot, they decided or they discovered or decided this comp is the thing that works, and there is no deviation from this. So for the rest of the season, those people might be screwed. Oh no, me as a shaman or whatever, or me as the less than ideal tank, that's going to be tough. Now, again, I'm talking about, we're talking about a space where the meta is a real thing, where it matters. And at other levels, it doesn't nearly matter as much, but it does influence people's perceptions. But I can't help but think that, and people who play at this level will obviously be able to give a better perspective, but that's kind of what I'm predicting here, is that now that we're seeing this thing with this kind of like heroic plus thing going on, certain classes, certain specs, they're going to have a big problem once you get to like a certain key level, and then that certain spec just isn't going to be able to cut it, because they're not able to handle the dungeon effects and whatever buffs that are coming out from here. The comp is going to be set for a certain dungeon, and so people are going to have a much harder time getting into a group. Chat here is suggesting, oh, just make your own key and what have you. But then if people are really that into the meta, a person who is outside of the meta who's trying to make their own key, they're going to be like, oh, freaking shaman is trying to do this. They're not going to, they suck. I'm not going to join up with them. So that's the concern that I have. I'm not saying this sucks, right? But they wanted feedback, so there we go. But I should be talking more on this. This is more my house, all right? Actually, I would say this is more my house. so for a player at my level who just does KSM, this is where we're going to be at. We're going to deal with the bargain, and that's going to have like this certain rotation, whether it's the whole kiss curse thing or just like straight up more damage. I am going to deal with fortified or tyrannical, never both. And I'm going to deal with probably the increased death timer difficulty thingamajig. Maybe. And that's it. So what do I think of like this level of play here? Same. It seems like this kind of the same thing, right? Um, but at this level, I would admit that the meta doesn't matter here. Like as long as you play well, you know your routes, you know how the mobs work, then you're okay. And as for being very specific with the xal'atath's bargain, with these two things here, I think this is cool. But I'll be a little bit worried about the positive quickly becoming a negative in case this is missed. Frenzied is much more easy to handle though. To me, this will be like the easy one because yeah, it'll be deadlier, but it'll be more, at least as a tank, it'll be a little bit more easy for me to handle. I'd like to think. Is the peril always on, or is it an affix that rotates? No, it's something. It's always on. So once you do sevens and higher, there's just more. So this is what we're seeing. We're just getting more and more stuff. So plus twos, we see the bargain. Plus fours, you see fortified or tyrannical. Plus sevens, it adds more. Plus tens, it adds more. When we get to 12s, that's when things change a little bit. So this bargain thing will go away, and instead you just have this buff. So where's that guile thing? So here we go. Revoking a bargain increases the health and damage of enemies by 20%. So I don't know if this applies to both mobs and bosses, but I guess it doesn't matter. And then of course there's, as keys get higher, the multiplier gets higher and higher and higher. Now, as for where this tracks on like rewards and stuff, they didn't really talk about that. But over time, as we get closer to launch, I'm going to have my big oversized chart that explains everything. That's going to come out, so don't worry about that too much. Just be aware of when I put that out, and you'll see it in a video and whatnot. But yeah, what do you guys think? Chats as well as YouTube comments. What do you guys think of this? I like this because what it's doing is it's addressing the different player types, notably the high end, because I don't think they've gotten a whole lot of attention, to be honest, which is kind of funny. But now we're seeing something that caters to that side, and I don't think it hurts anyone. I don't think it does. But I'd love to hear some of your guys' thoughts and opinions on it. Like the video, subscribe for more stuff, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.